live now?
Yay.
Yay! Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mystic Views and News, or News and Views. I should have remembered that. I should have looked that one up. Maven has tonight off. She's got family visiting, so she just wanted to spend some time with them tonight. And with me tonight is my dear friend Deb Bowen. And we are going to talk about tarot cards. We've had some requests about learning about that, so something that's really fun. And we've got an expert tarot reader with us tonight, so I'm excited about that.
Me too.
So,
Thank you for having me, Lorraine. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is fun. I always enjoy having you on here. So, where do we want to begin? What do we say? We're going to talk about the history of tarot. So,
Which can be done really in one sentence. We don't know.
okay.
I'm going to go into a little more detail than that, though, however.
Thank you. Yes, because I knew it was in the 1500s.
Well,
they believe that it was started in Italy.
We can actually go back a little bit earlier than that. Actually, we can go back to maybe the late 1300s,
Really?
early 1400s,
Okay.
where we have some evidence of decks that we still have pieces of them that we can still identify. But probably tarot is older than that. Probably came from, as best we can figure, from the Romany people as they migrated out of India and down through Egypt, and then across Europe. So we feel like that is a part of the Romany culture. That's where the basics of tarot began.
Okay.
However, once tarot made it into Europe, it went in a lot of different directions. And one of the directions was that it became a divination technique for fortune tellers, is what they were called back then,
right.
Court jesters, to give messages to the royalty. So they were hidden symbols that were from one court to another that were passed on by messengers. One of the things that we can do, for example, is we can trace the legend of the Holy Grail through the major arcana. And that's one of the theories of what tarot was about during the Middle Ages, was that was a way of keeping the story of the divine feminine alive.
Really?
Through tarot. In my advanced class, I teach that.
Okay.
I talk about that a lot. So that's really fun. Another aspect of tarot is that it was, as you suggested, it was meant for fun. It was meant to be a game. Sometimes, because of course, before the printing press was developed, each card was hand painted. So a lot of times these decks that we're talking about in the early days, in the 1400s, the Marseille deck, for example, sometimes the pictures on the cards of people were literally portraits of royalty a lot of times.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So it's really fascinating. It's really from the Marseille deck, of which we still have several cards there in a museum in France. It was from that deck that the basis of what we think of tarot today evolved. And what makes tarot tarot? What makes it unique and separate and different from that broad category that we call oracle cards is tarot structure.
Okay.
It's divided into 5 sections: the major arcana, and then the minor arcana, which has 4 sections within it. So in the major arcana, there are 22 keys. We talk about them being cards, but they're more actually rightly called keys. And so we have 22 keys in the major arcana, and they are numbered 0 to 21. And there's been Tarot scholars and historians have gone round and round and round about where to put the Fool. Does the Fool key exist in the beginning and is 0? Should he be at the end? Or is he both? And is the story of the major arcana one big wheel and one big circle about our journey through trials and tribulations in our life? And so you could actually take those 22 keys of the major arcana and lay them out in order. And if you put the Fool, if you had a table in front of you, you put the Fool at the top by himself. And then key 1, which is the Magician, to key 7, which is the Chariot, in a line. And then 8, which is Strength, to 14, which is Temperance, 15, which is the Devil, to 22, which is 21, which is the World. Then what you have is a story. The major arcana tells a story. And it tells the story of the Fool's journey to enlightenment. And when we use the word fool in terms of tarot, we don't really mean fool in the way that we modern folks think of that word. It really means someone who is a seeker. In fact, some decks call that key the seeker.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the seeker's journey to finding him or herself, because you can't tell gender when you look at the Fool, through physical and emotional and spiritual trials and tribulations. So really that journey that the Fool takes through the major arcana mirrors our journey internally, our relationships, our connection with the divine, and our connection with what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, which some of us call our connection to the Akashic records. So the major arcana are all those cards with all those great names. And I could go off on a whole long tangent about that, but nonetheless. So then there is, I'll put that aside for a minute and talk about the minor arcana. The word arcana comes from the word arcane, meaning hidden. So in the minor arcana, there are 4 suits. They have different names in different decks, but typically the symbols are similar. And that is wands, cups, pentacles, and swords. Mm-hmm. And each of those 4 suits is connected to a compass direction, east, south, northwest, an element, fire, air, earth, water, to colors, to chakras, to my mind's going blank, but you name some kind of metaphysical property or way of thinking, and you can find it in those 4 suits. In addition to all of that, one of the cool things about tarot in general is that we find within all 78 of those keys literally aspects of ourselves. We see ourselves mirrored in them. And we see ourselves mirrored through all of those wonderful symbols. If there's anything I love most about tarot, and I do love tarot, it is the way in which the symbols of so many different world beliefs come together. I love, for example, looking at the Empress, and there are Egyptian and Greek and Christian and astrological symbols on that card. Look at the Chariot, and you see Egyptian and Celtic and Hindu symbols on the Chariot. Look at so many world beliefs come together. The Hierophant, for example, which is the 5th card in the major arcana. When you look at him, he's sometimes called the Pope, but not in the sense of specifically to Catholicism, but more an authority figure or someone who has a deeper meaning and connection to traditional spirituality.
It says a spiritual leader type.
Yeah, and he pushes a lot of people's buttons. Mm-hmm. Hierophant is not always a good fit for folks, you know.
Yeah.
So I love that all of those symbols are there. And I've been reading tarot since the early 1980s. And I've been teaching tarot for I don't know how many years. Um,
I know
and
I took lessons from you probably about oh, 12, 13 years ago.
wow, I'm not surprised. I'm sure it was a long time
Yeah.
ago. And so I love that tarot brings us to common ground. Because when we look at those symbols on those cards, we find a language that helps us to look at a deeper connection. It's one of the things I love the most about the
Mhm.
cards. Anyway, I'll hush a minute.
So I know your favorite deck is the Rider Waite.
What, although I'm not calling it that deck anymore. I'm now calling it the why. See, I can't even do it. The Waite Coleman Smith deck. We can't leave Pamela out of this deck anymore. She
Okay.
got left out too many years. Can't leave Pixie out of this. But yes, that is my favorite deck, and I'll tell you why.
And so we were talking before we came on live, and I mentioned that at the store I have 76 different tarot decks, and that's not all that's actually available. Technically, probably 75 because I do have a Spanish version of the Rider Waite. It's the only Spanish version of any of the decks that I have that felt like we do get requests for that. So technically, I have 75 different decks. So if how do they, because there's such a structure with tarot, why is there such a difference? Why are there so many different tarot decks?
Great question. I think that in today's world, in today's market, part of that is marketing. Part of that is pure team money, to be honest.
Sure.
But and it is, it used to be that it was U.S. Games and they made the Rider Waite deck and that was it. And that's not, of course, the case anymore. And one of the things that the variety and the versatility of so many decks on the market today have given folks is a way of looking at artwork and symbolism in a different way. So, for example, Christopher Hughes' Celtic deck. That's a wonderful deck, and the metaphors, the journey he takes you on if you're working with that deck is through the Celtic symbolism. Whereas your Crow deck that I know you've got on the table in front of you, that deck, that deck uses an entirely different way of looking at symbolism. So I think sometimes it's what most often speaks to the individual who's being drawn to tarot.
Okay. So, like, for example, this is the Queen of Cups, and I could not find my copy of Rider Waite, and Michael didn't grab that one. So, can you grab your Queen of Cups real quick?
I do. While you're looking, I can pull it out. I have a.
And this one is the Crow Tarot. So there's going to be crows in every single deck.
Right.
Or in every single card.
Right.
Which we all have an affinity. I think most people have an affinity to crows.
Yeah, they're great teachers, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hold on. I'm almost to her.
Okay. I probably should have planned this in advance.
Well, I have to tell you, I have one deck that I use as a teaching deck. Here she is. I have one deck that I use as a teaching deck, so I keep those in order. So
that's a good idea.
I can find stuff as opposed to the deck that is my working deck. So hold on. All right. So here's the Queen of Cups See how to do this. There we go.
Yeah, right in the center.
Yeah, I'm trying. All right, so there she is in the Waite Rider
Okay.
Smith. And so what you see here in the Queen of Cups here, cups are connected to the element of water, to the direction of west. So on all the cup, you see she's sitting with her feet in the water.
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Yep.
And on the chair carved into her throne are little undines, little sea nymphs. The cup that she's holding in her hand is connected to having some kind of nectar or sustenance in the cup. And I mean, you know, then there's numerology involved in the numbers of the points on her crown, and it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah. So there's a lot to it.
It is.
So someone that's new to tarot, and you know they find their deck. What do they do next?
Figure out how you're going to store it and take care of it. And I can talk more later. Don't let me forget to come back to this. I can talk more later about ways in which you can better connect with your deck to really get to know your cards. So I'll come back to that. But I don't mean in terms of learning to read them. I mean just in terms of building a relationship. Here's what I say to folks in my classes. On one hand, this is a piece of paper covered in plastic. This deck is made by US Games, right? That's what I'm holding in my hand. And yet, this is the part of tarot that I don't think anybody can teach. And it's that there is a deep connection to the energies of each of these cards all by themselves individually. And there is certainly a deep connection to the overall messages that tarot gives. And if tarot were a big box store, which it's not, but if it were, what it sells, and I use that word metaphorically, to anybody who works with it, is hope.
Yeah.
Tarot gives hope. And I'll give you then I'll move on to answer your question, but now let me get myself backwards here. Oh, Lord, I'm sorry, y'all.
There you go.
There you go. There we go. I got it. All right. So this key is the Five of Cups. And that is a key of obvious despair. I mean, here is somebody standing by a stream, cups overturned, clearly a very sad figure. And that's partly true if you read the meaning of this key. But what's important in this key is the bridge in the background. See the bridge?
Yes.
And that's the point, is that there is always hope. I pulled that totally at random. You're right. So let's talk about taking care of your cards.
Okay.
First of all, you will never hear me use the word play. I don't play with tarot. I work with tarot. So that's a language piece that has to do with respect for me. Absolutely. But I do think that, and this is a time-honored tradition in working with tarot, is that you store them in some kind of container that is just used for that purpose. Now, the deck I was showing you a minute ago, it's my working deck that I keep in the box. I do that so I can show it to people. But the deck that is my deck, that has been with me these many years, is in my mama's recipe box.
Recipe box, I remember that.
Mama's recipe box, her name, she wrote her name up here in the lid. So they live in this box, and I know you have some beautiful boxes, and I want you to show them to people in a minute to show people some ideas.
Yeah, so one we have is
so gorgeous.
Let me see. That's right. Yeah, opens this way. just little slide box, and then they fit in there perfect. And the other one that's really cool is we now
I've
have,
dropped something. Keep talking.
it's okay. We have the Trodeck card, Trodeck boxes. So we have, I believe, all of the major arcana. I think we have all of them.
Wow.
We just finally got all of them in. It just comes out. Yeah, that comes out actually all the way, and you just have this. So it's a beautiful box. Just really happy with them. And then what I have for my cards is this bag that I had made. I had some fabric that I absolutely loved, and I had a lady make this for me. And it
Nice.
fits in perfectly. It's just got the nice soft inside and then the velvety outside.
Okay.
So
So yeah, if you are new to this,
Mhm.
you're thinking, how in the world do I go into Mystic Elements and choose a deck
Mhm.
from 75 or 6 if you are bilingual decks? I would tell you that you may end up having to buy more than one. That you may be drawn to the artwork, for example,
Mhm.
on a deck. And am I also correct in that you have samples of most of the decks open, so folks
all of the
can
decks. Yes. So anybody that comes into the store, they can see every single card with the deck. It's to me, it was really important to do that. I know a lot of businesses don't, or they'll have just maybe sample. Like my vendors will give me a sample deck, which is it's like 5 cards.
Mm.
It's just and it's hard for the online people because I that is one request that I got from someone who was shopping online is they would like to see more than just the cover. So
Sure.
that is a project that I do plan on working on. It's just when I have 75 Tarot and probably over
Blue
100 oracles, that's a lot of photography.
It sure is. And as Lorraine's pointing out to folks, the option if you go into the store to be able to actually touch them and do that is a gift that you don't get in a lot of stores. So that's a wonderful thing. So you may be drawn to a deck for its artwork.
Mhm.
It may speak to you in some way. Do you have the steampunk deck?
I don't have the steampunk deck.
Then that will be your next deck to buy because it's one of my favorites.
I'll have to get that one.
Love that.
What a pop! Oh my gosh, this one, the Wonderland Tarot,
Yeah.
is so popular. I sell so many of these cards.
What draws people to it?
It's Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
Let me see what I can find in
It
here.
makes me think of Jefferson Airplane, but whatever.
Maybe like here's the moon, and these are smaller.
Oh, I see.
Like here's the moon, and it's just
Mhm.
it's just really interesting. And then here's whatever that one is. I can't.
It's the
It's a five
five of
something. 5 of hats. Maybe that's a version of the pentacles. I don't know.
I don't know.
But they're really cute.
But the question that Lorraine has asked about how to choose the deck, I offer 2 ideas. One, let the deck choose you.
Yeah.
Let the deck choose you. Just what really speaks to you.
Yeah.
Take it home.
Holds you. Yeah.
Take it home, work with it. And then you may realize that while the artwork is lovely, the written material that goes with it doesn't really have a piece that speaks so deeply to you. So you might want to try something different.
Mm-hmm.
So you may end up with trying several different decks before you find one that really resonates with you. And like I said, I have a lot of decks. I was
going to ask us. I don't know if I should ask how many decks does Deb have, or how many did you use that before you?
Oh, not nearly as many as the store has. I've probably got, I don't know, 10 or 20. I'll tell you the deck that I have that's the most unique. You know, you can't have an adjective for unique. I know that, but bear with me. I own a Salvador Dali deck. Do you
Really?
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
Salvador Dali with a tarot deck.
Huh.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's Salvador Dali artwork. Believe me, you can tell
Wow.
Salvador Dali did the deck. Um, I never use it. I mean, it's interesting to look at, but I
Yeah.
don't use it. So I think what may happen is that you may be a, like me, perhaps, or more than, because a lot of folks do more than I do, a big collector of a lot of different decks, and end up just really having a couple of decks that you really work with.
Mhm.
That may be what you end up doing, which is what I do. In terms of storage, though, one of the boxes that Lorraine has showed you is a great idea, or a bag, but something that says, this is something I work with and connect spirit with, and it needs a space that is sacred to it.
Mhm.
And what I have in my tarot box, along inside the box, and some folks will tell you, oh, you must wrap them in a piece of silk. Okay, I don't. Here's what mine are wrapped in. They're wrapped in a cotton handkerchief that belonged to my grandmother. Okay. So something that feels they are protected. And then inside that, I have herbs scattered in the bottom of the box.
Mhm.
And I'm talking this box right here.
Yep.
So there are herbs scattered in the bottom. There's some sage. There's some cedar. I think there's a piece of Palo Santo. Um, I have some vervain oil sprinkled on the cloth.
So
And then I
what's
have
the intention of the herbs?
the to well the sage to keep them purified.
Mhm.
So so that's they are living in a constant state of being cleaned and cleared with having the sage and the cedar. So that's really the intent there, is
Okay.
to
Of
keep them clean and clear. And then I have crystals. Of course, I have crystals in the box.
course.
Yeah, of course you do. And there's a piece of clear quartz. There's a piece of Vivianite, and there's a piece of, is it chrysocolla? Hold on, I'll look. Oh, Amazonite. There's a piece of Amazonite in here. Something somebody gave me. Oh, and the Vivianite and a piece of clear quartz. That's what's in here.
Nice.
So it's busy in this little box. There they are. And I don't leave them out laying around. They have a drawer that they live in. I'm not working with them.
Okay. So do you want to? I actually have the other camera set up that we can talk about easy tarot spreads.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to use the Crow Tarot. And
That deck really speaks to you, doesn't it?
I'm married to a crow.
I know.
Yeah, so kind of like him. I have a crow tattoo on my back.
I know you do.
Yeah. So the other thing I remember in our class is cutting the deck using your left hand.
And letting the querent cut the deck with his or her left hand. And that's another. And this is a absolute personal preference.
Right. Yeah.
Personal preference. I'm not going to let you touch my tarot cards, except for when I'm doing a reading for you. I want you touching the cards. You know how I feel about that. Other people, totally different than me about that. Have a whole different philosophy about that.
So I'm actually going to switch my camera.
Can I keep talking while you're working on that?
Yeah, I'm going to keep your camera up.
Okay. All right, then I'll do my little commercial. Why don't I do that while you're doing that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, commercial time. So I have created a line. This is not tarot. This is a greeting card. I have created a greeting card series for the 8 spokes of the wheel of the year. And this is I'm still working on this camera thing. I'm sorry, y'all. My Samhain card. So it has a lovely picture of a fall flower on the front that is from a friend's yard and a blessing. And then inside is a verse. Oh, I'm
There you
trying.
go.
Okay, a verse
On the blanket.
for Samhain. So Lorraine has a very limited supply of these. I
Yes.
think 12 boxes. That's all she has of 8. There are 8 in each box. So if you're interested in actually sending an old-fashioned card to friends for Samhain, Lorraine has some.
Okay. Awesome.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, so I've got my deck, and then I cut it with
Okay.
my left hand. So then this is,
And the reason for that is because you're receiving energy and information from the deck.
yes, and
From
your
the
left side is your receiving end. And the best way for me to always remember that is in a marriage, when in a marriage ceremony, the man is on the right and the woman is on the left. That's the only way I can remember. So I because it's the easy way.
That's true.
It's that tradition, and so I find it interesting about our cars. The over here, the driver's on the right side, but then in England, that's on the driver's on the left side, and well, I don't know. Did I say that correctly?
No, you said it backwards, but you're exactly
Okay.
right. Is we should be driving the cars. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. Hey, so women rule the vehicles.
Okay.
Okay. So let me see. Let me get to my notes here.
You're going to do a 3-card spread first?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a 3-card spread. And so I know one of them is a past, present, future. These cards are not shuffled very well. I just only shuffled them a couple of times. So we have the other thing is that we don't know what these symbols are. Can you see those okay?
Sort of.
You need to.
But I couldn't know. I wouldn't know because I wouldn't know what the suits are anyway.
Okay, so we've got this one is the 9 of
Looks like cups.
Cups. And then we've got the 2 of Swords. And then the 9 of Pentacles. And then these 2 were reversed. So would you do a reversal in a past, present, future?
You bet. And this again is a different way in which readers approach tarot. There are some readers who only read the cards right side up. I don't do that. I read them however they fall. So if they fall reversed, I use the reverse meaning of the card. For me, that gives another layer of depth and richness to the reading. But that's me, and that's how I teach it. But so we've got so what Lorraine has put out here is a 3-card spread, and there are many different ways of approaching something like a 3-card spread. She just mentioned that her intent for laying this out was past, present, and future. But you can also look at a 3-card spread for a lot of other things. Maiden, mother, crone, so you can look at a progression in one's life of young womanhood, adulthood, and then wisdom, cronehood. We talked about 2 or 3 other things. Lorraine, my mind's gone blank. For a 3-card spread.
Yeah, there was a couple of different spreads that we were going to talk about. So
yeah.
So what's another 3-card spread that would work?
Well, you could do lay it out for mind, body, spirit would be another one. So if, for example, and this would, you could take a question, for example, of what do I need to do differently in my life right now to better balance mind, body, spirit? Let's just take that question.
Okay.
Okay. So if you take the cards that Lorraine has laid out here and you look at them, first of all, in past, present, future. So the card on the left would be the past, because we read a 3-card spread typically from the left to the right. So that's the one she's pointing to the left there. So that card in the past is, what have you done or not done in the past to honor how that balance plays out in your life? What has influenced your decision in what you have or have not done to work on balance in your life? The center card, the present, is, what are you doing right now? What can you control? What other factors play into how you are at this very moment? So here's an example. I recently made a decision to really get serious about diet and health and some things in my life. And so I've negotiated to work with a nutritionist to help me with that. And she has been absolutely wonderful. I can't say enough nice things about her. And very kind and very helpful. But that, if I were laying this out to say, okay, what am I going to do to be in better health, to find that balance of mind, body, spirit? Well, what had I done in the past? Well, I ate a lot of ice cream. And in the present, I've got this nutritionist I'm working with, but I'm doing the work. Right? She's helping, but I'm doing the work. And then the card on the far right is what is going to be the outcome, what's going to happen in the future. And one of the things that I think is an important piece of working with Tarot is that probably if there is a deficit in Tarot, for me, it's that it doesn't tell time well. And that's partly because the energy of a question and answer is all in a bubble of energy at one time. And so Tarot doesn't sort that out well. What I've found in my practice, just personally, is that that Tarot's kind of good for about 6 months out. And after that, I can't really tell you very much. So that's a way of looking at a particular question of past and present and future. Another way to look at something like that is mind, body, spirit. So you could ask that same question, do another spread, another 3-card spread,
Mhm.
and you will get a different set of cards, probably, maybe not. And now you're asking, okay, what do I need to do mentally for mind, for the card on the left? Body, what do I need to do physically for the card in the center? And what do I need to do spiritually, the card on the right, to find that balance and answer the question? So those are just different ways you can use a 3-card spread.
Okay. And then another one is situation, obstacle, and then advice.
Okay. I've never done that, but okay.
Yeah, it's just on my research, I found that one too. So I thought that was a nice one. So then another one is 5-card spread. So I'll go ahead and do a quick one here. These cards aren't used very much. They're still very... So play the deck, cut the cards. So then there's like, what I came across was 2 different 5-card spreads. There's 2 different layouts. So like this one is, shows past, present, future, core reason for the circumstances, and then potential for the situation.
It's an interesting way to do that. Huh. So you might ask that same question. You know,
Yeah,
what
so
do I need?
it's another variation of past, present, future, and then you add why, and then potential, your what the potential outcome could possibly be. So this would be very specific about a very specific question, past, present, future, about a very specific thing.
And you know, you bring up a really good point about specificity. Tarot doesn't do well with yes or no questions. Pendulums do well with
Yeah.
yes or no questions, but Tarot really helps you to really flesh out a lot of factors that you may not have considered before in looking at a particular question. So yes, your question needs to be very specific and very clear. And boy, I could go off on a whole other long tangent about the ethics of this and how you can't ask questions for other people. But certainly use something like this 5 card spread to look at pieces of the puzzle that you may not have considered before. And that looks like that spread gives you some more in-depth information that a 3 card doesn't give you.
Mm-hmm. And then let's see. And I'll just show the other one. There's another 5-card spread that I found. It is present situation, influence. Almost all my cards are upside down. I need to mix them up. Challenges, final outcome, and then a theme. So I thought this one was really interesting. So I got a weird shine on these.
Yeah, it's okay. And you laid out the outcome before the theme?
Yeah, that's the way that this particular spread said to do, which I found interesting. Why would so I guess your theme is just the whole thing?
Maybe so.
Last?
Yeah, that could be. That could be the approach that they're taking with that.
Yes, I thought that was pretty interesting too. So I'm gonna remove the text.
That is interesting. You know, there are a zillion spreads these days all over the place. I recently, one of my favorite Facebook pages is a page called The Original Tarot on Point. Please be sure you do this. The Original Tarot on Point. And that page is run by a wonderful woman named Kat, who loves tarot. She reads tarot. She's excellent at what she does, but that's not her focus. Her focus really is on looking at the myriad of decks that are out there and looking at different spreads and this, that, and the other. And she posted a spread not long ago. There was an 11-card spread about kind of a tree of life spread that was just really interesting. And I've done a couple of readings for myself using that spread. And it's a different way of approaching a given question and looking at it again from almost a yin-yang perspective, a balanced perspective. I think she posted that information on that spread back in early August. So if you go to her page and scroll back,
Okay.
you can see that. So I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just find it fascinating all these different spreads and you know those are great for beginners.
Those are.
Yeah.
Those are really good for
because then
beginners.
you get into the Celtic cross.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to that. There's, because there's, as you taught me, there's an entire story to it.
Right.
And should I show that?
Oh, sure. I mean, lay it out for folks. Are we doing okay on time?
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay. And I want to go back and talk about that, getting to know your cards. I don't want to forget that.
Okay. Yeah, so we have, so doing the Celtic cross here. So that is your present. Is that how you do it? Nope.
That's the querent,
Okay.
the person who's asking the question.
So I'm just reading off of this. So how about I lay them down and you tell us what they are?
I can do
How
that.
about that?
I'll do that. Okay.
Okay. So we've got the querent, the King of
Uh-huh.
Swords.
Okay.
Overlying that is
Cross.
the Seven of Cups.
I'll never remember all of that. But the card that crosses that
Mhm.
is what is the real question? Because a lot of times what happens is you as the reader reading for yourself or reading for someone else, what we think is the question that we really that we ask isn't really the question we deep inside need to
Mhm.
ask. That card tells you that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Lynn.
That's okay. So
This is the undercurrent. This is what's going on below the surface of the question. We may not be able to see.
okay.
Past. And past is a relative term. It may mean 10 minutes ago, or it may mean 30 years ago.
Okay.
And that's the answer to that is it's informed by the other cards around it. This is the near future. The more distant future. So we have a continuum of time, sort of, going on here. What the querent fears. If the querent were to ask the question that he or she is asking of Tarot to someone else, to a friend, for example, what would that person say? What are your hopes and dreams? What is it you really want to have happen? And then the 10th and final card is the culmination, the answer that pulls the story and all of the other cards together to give you the depth of the outcome of the question.
Yeah. So what I find fascinating with this is, it's not just about the card. There's an entire story here. You look at the color palette. You look to see if there's more of the major arcana versus the minor arcana. What's really controlling that, and then are there a lot of the similar suits? So if you've got a lot of swords going on, that has one meaning versus if you have a lot more of the cups. So,
And good job, boy, you remember a lot from that.
I know how to do it. It's just I can't. I don't have the memory of the cards. That's my biggest thing. But I know how to read cards.
You do. You absolutely do. And I understand that for a lot of people, cataloging away all of that symbology is difficult and may not necessarily even be fun. I am one of those people who got my own copy of Edith Hamilton's mythology in the 4th grade. So I just eat that stuff up and always have. And it's been easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that it isn't for everybody else.
Yeah.
And there are other divination tools that don't speak to me at all. Don't even get me started about runes. I can't talk to you about runes. But and that's just me. But you're right in that one of the gifts of Tarot is all of that symbology and learning how all of those symbols interconnect with each other on those cards. Tarot is a lifetime journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Every time I lay out a spread, every time I teach a class, I learn something new every time.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end. So what was it do you want to talk about again?
I want to talk about getting familiar with your deck.
Okay.
Getting to know your deck. And so you buy a deck, you find the right container and the right crystals, and you do all that stuff. And then what? Well, one of the things you need to do is to shuffle them to get them
Yes.
looser and pliable, which is sit around doing that. But the other thing is really spending time with each individual card. And so I often recommend that you buy 2 decks. And one of the decks is the deck you work with. The other you glue into a notebook. So you got a notebook. See if I can find an empty page. Okay. So you got a notebook and you glue a card here on one side. And on the other side, you write in longhand the symbols and the connection and the meaning of the card. Your hand remembers. It's called cellular memory.
Okay.
So, so that
That's new. I don't remember you teaching that when. So that's a new way. I think the way that you taught me was I had to carry that card with me for like a week, and every day
meditate.
just meditate with that card,
I'm
and then
still teaching that.
really connect with it and understand it, and then just see every teeny little nuance about that particular card.
I can't speak for all the decks, but I bet you for most of them this is true. I know it is for the Waite Rider Smith deck. There are no accidents. There is not a single mark on any of those cards that's there by randomness. It's just not. Another thing that folks do sometimes is they sleep with a card in their pillowcase. One card, just one.
Oh yeah.
I had a woman one time who I had suggested the class do that. She came back to the second session and she said that was horrible. Oh, why was that so bad? She said I had nightmares, I had craziness, it was nuts, I couldn't sleep. I said, what card did you choose? She said, I put the whole deck under my head. Hello.
Yeah, no wonder. That's
Right.
chaos right there.
Right, exactly. So don't do that. Just one card at a time. And you're right. Spend a long time with them.
Yeah, especially the major arcana.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that just there's so much to that. But even with it, although even with a minor, but not as much. I feel like I think there's just so much even more involved with the major.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I love them, and we've been friends for a long time, Miss Rodek and I.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a lot to do, and there's even more spreads. Have you ever just created your own?
Yeah, I have actually.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I use numbers because there's a whole thing about numerology and tarot that we could go into. But I have done a 7 card spread. 7 is my birth number. It is the number of the mystic. I mean, it's got all sorts of connotations to it. So I've done 7 card spreads that have worked nicely for me. In addition to like the 10 card spread with the Celtic Cross, that card I was talking about, that spread with the Tree of Life is 11 cards. Mm-hmm. You could do an astrological spread with connections to the signs of the zodiac. You can do a Tree of Life spread connecting with the Kabbalah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. There's no limit to them.
Okay. Yeah, so there's definitely different ways to do this. But just the biggest thing is just connecting with your cards, and then if so, I know that like the descriptions and all that too. Sometimes you'll assign your own instead of going with what the author has decided to choose for that card. You find something that has just changed the meaning a little bit for yourself.
You do, and yes, you can do. I've done that, but I think knowing that the freedom to do that comes when you understand the traditional meaning of the card and what it's all of those symbols on it are really all about, and then you can say, okay, wait, I think this card is speaking to me in a different way. I'll give you an example of that. Some years ago, I don't know how many years ago, I started getting folks who would come see me and they wanted to see if I could connect with their pets on the other side. I'm like, well, I don't know if I can do that. I'm not a medium. I'm not a medium, so I'm not sure that I can, but we'll be happy to try. So I asked my tarot deck if during a reading that there was a card that would be willing to change its meaning and become my symbol for a pet on the other side.
Mhm.
Would tarot show me that? And I started getting one particular card that's what every time what would come into my head is this person's got a dead dog she wants to talk to. And so I started asking. When that card showed up, I started asking if that was one of the reasons they'd come to see me. The answer was always yes. I said,
Wow.
okay. So the Page of Pentacles is now my animal card. But I asked for tarot to work with me that way.
Mhm.
And I was trial and error for several months before I felt comfortable to say, yes, this has really happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think we need to wrap it up. It's after 9 o'clock. We went over a little bit, but that's okay. We got started late too.
You did.
Again, computer issues. Yeah, I think I finally have it figured out now. I have got to use Chrome
Okay.
to do this. Yeah, so. But thank you so much, Deb. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned some things too, and then just it was really cool because you reminded me of the class that I took from you all those years ago. That it's like, oh yeah, I still know that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Served you well. I'm glad it did.
yeah. But it was a great class, and you do offer classes.
I actually have. I had originally offered a class on Tuesdays in October, and it filled. So I've now opened a second section on Wednesdays in October. I have a couple of seats left in that one, and then I also have a daytime section that I open on Wednesdays in October, specifically because people in Europe asked me to do that. And I've got some seats that I will then open up to people in the United States. So basically, the answer to your question is yes, in October, I teach a 3-session course, one that meets at 2 in the afternoon Eastern time, one that meets at 8 in the evening Eastern time, and uses the Weight Rider deck. And the Eden Way
Get a hold of you through your website.
Right, debbowen.com. If you look under any active courses, it's there.
Yeah. Or your Facebook pages, Deb and Friends Quest for Connection, and Psychic Teachers.
And Witches of the Shore.
And Witches of the Shore. You're through 3 websites.
3
Busy
Facebook pages. 3 Facebook pages and a website.
Or yeah, what Facebook pages, not websites, but 1 website, 3 Facebook pages.
Right.
Yeah. So wonderful. And thanks everybody for watching this evening. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.
Sounds great. Thank you. Blessings to everyone. Thank you so much.